I am a sucker for a good monologue. Whether it's in a movie or a show, it doesn't matter. I think they have the ability to define a scene and make a television episode or film memorable. They can really exemplify what a movie or show is trying to say, and it's the type of thing that can really define a character as well. Like, if what I'm watching ends up being mediocre but it has a decent monologue scene, I'm willing to forgive it. And of course, a huge shout out to the actors and writers for bringing them to life. Now look, there are a plethora of monologues in cinema and television that I haven't seen yet, but I have seen a decent amount, so I have compiled the list of my top 10 personal favorites. I'll probably leave out the personal part in the title and just say top 10 all time because I'm a piece of shit and I need views. We're close to 1,000 subs and I'm burnt out. Just please guys, just bear with me. So what am I looking for in a monologue? Few things. I want a monologue that makes me want to run through a brick wall. I want ones that have me amazed at the writing. I want ones that force me to stare at whatever screen that's in front of me in awe. Ones that are incredibly delivered. Ones that have me going on YouTube immediately to rewatch them. I know I'm gonna miss a bunch that you guys think should be on the list and you'll probably want to spit on me, so comment below which speeches or monologues you guys think are goated and should have been mentioned. Alright, let's start this shit. Show my list! Barry. I sometimes forget how good this show was. Like, I'll try to list some of the best shows I've ever watched and be like, oh yeah, Barry. So many great moments in this show, and one of them is Sally's monologue. Barry scores an audition for a film, and when he's rehearsing a scene with Sally, she cuts him off and goes on a rant. She talks about the stress she has of presenting her story to the class, and even though it's her personal story, there's an immediate judgment because she's a woman. Sally also brings up how she's jealous of Barry getting the audition since she thinks she's a better actor and that it'll drive her more nuts if he actually gets the part. It's a character-defining monologue and it highlights the pressure and unfair hardships that women feel not just in the entertainment industry, but in general. Just a quick shout out to my fellow Better Call Saul fans, just cuz. The Jimmy-Chuck rivalry comes to a head here, and when it's revealed that Jimmy had Huel slip a battery in Chuck's pocket, downplaying Chuck's alleged electromagnetic hypersensitivity, it leads to a diatribe from Chuck towards Jimmy's scheming antics and how he doesn't deserve to be a lawyer. This moment was 3 seasons in the making, and the buildup was spectacular. Michael McKean is brilliant here, and it's the epitome of someone who's just fed up with everything and letting loose, similar to Sally's monologue in Barry. My god, what a mini-series this was. Probably the best I've ever seen. Everyone should watch Chernobyl. Everyone. Legasov details what actually transpired during the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, and in doing so, reveals that he lied about his previous testimony in Vienna but also exposes the Soviet state for lying as well. He explains how similar situations with other power plants can occur again due to the Soviet state's negligence, and that constant lying leads to debts owed to the truth and that eventually those debts must be paid. I'm paraphrasing, but the actual line is one of the best lines I've heard in a movie or TV show. It's an ideology that applies to everyday life, but it's also not far off from what we've experienced in the last 4 years. The long-awaited Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen first meeting, and man did it deliver. Refrain from Game of Thrones Season 7 and or 8 comments please, and just focus on this specific interaction. Jon needs Daenerys' help with the impending threat of the Night King / White Walkers, and Daenerys wants Jon to bend the knee, leading to a back and forth between them. Daenerys brings up the trauma and tragedy she's gone through and that faith in herself and nothing else is what helped her push through so she can eventually lead the 7 Kingdoms. Emilia Clarke is absolute nails here, and after that monologue you're just like, fuck yeah, brother. It really puts into perspective how brutal Dany's journey has been up to this point, and you can't help but realize after hearing it that she truly does deserve to be ruler. If a monologue can do that, it's a massive success. It's always nice when your favorite show of all time has an all-time monologue. And it doesn't come from Walt, or Jesse, or Gus, or Saul, or Hank, but Mike. He tells Walt a story from his days as a beat cop where one day he arrested an abusive man after a domestic dispute with his significant other. There would be a recurring cycle of abuse, and Mike would constantly arrest the abusive man, but nothing would change until one night Mike violently confronted and threatened him to leave the woman alone or else he'd kill him. Sometime later, the abusive man ended up killing the woman. Mike tells Walt that he chose a half measure in that situation when he should have gone all the way, and that Walt should never go with the half measure. It's an absolutely chilling and heartbreaking story, and we can see how the message shapes Walt's decision making throughout the rest of the show. Man, very few things slap harder than bench scenes from The Wire. The writing is absolutely brilliant, and it's on full display here. Bunk confronts Omar about a death in the neighborhood, and Omar kind of dances around the conversation, not fully cooperating, which leads to Bunk sharing his experiences about growing up in a tough but unified neighborhood, and how it went from a communal society to people glorifying killers like Omar. It's a phenomenal scene because we're reminded that Omar, who's an audience favorite, is an extremely flawed individual whose violent actions are having an influence on people within the neighborhood, including kids who look up to him. Bunk's monologue brings us back to earth when it comes to how we view and analyze Omar as a character. Great closing line by Bunk, by the way.
Makes me sick, motherfucker, how far we done fell.
I know. What the fuck is Accepted doing here? I wouldn't be shocked if most of you haven't even watched Accepted. But I have. And I think Bartleby's courtroom speech is one of the best ever. I'm not even joking in the slightest. I was like 10 years old when I first watched the film on demand, and 15 plus years later, this speech has still stuck with me, and I don't think it's given enough credit. It tackles the flaws of the educational system that are still apparent to this day, and how sometimes safer routes in life can lead to creativity taking a backseat. There's a lot of commentary here, and I wish a lot more people would discuss it. Wanted to run through a brick wall after hearing it. Still do. Accepted isn't a perfect movie, but this was a perfect speech in my opinion, and Justin Long hits it out the park. I feel like this scene has shown up on everyone's YouTube recommendations at least once. Anyway, look, I don't want to be that guy, but it's possible the Newsroom peaked with its very first scene, which is this one. But at least it's one of the greatest openings to a show ever, and it's top 3 on my list, which I argue is more important. Aaron Sorkin is one of the greatest screenwriters ever, and that statement is backed up with this scene right here. Cable news anchor Will McAvoy, played by Jeff Daniels, speaks at a college panel and details why America isn't the greatest country in the world anymore. He emphasizes the heavy flaws of our once great nation and how it's declined compared to other countries. It's a monologue masterclass that is still relevant and holds true to this day. Can't help but listen to it, shake your head, and fully agree with what he's saying. I'm cheating! This whole episode is a monologue, but I don't care. Before The View from Halfway Down aired, this was the best episode of Bojack Horseman. The plot is rather simple, as Bojack gives a eulogy at his mother's funeral. He talks about the relationship between the two, discusses how his father died, and tries to decipher and analyze his mom's last words to him, which were, "I see you." Because the entire episode consists of just Bojack speaking, if I had to pick out one specific part of it to choose as a monologue instead of the entire thing, it's when he finally realizes that when his mom said "I see you," she just meant ICU as an intensive care unit because she was reading a sign that said that. He goes on to say that now he will never have a mother who will figuratively see him and that he only has himself to depend on. Bojack tries to use comedy as a way to deal with his grief throughout the entire episode, but the pain of everything is still apparent in his voice, and that's a testament to Will Arnett's range. Dealing with grief, accepting death, and wondering what could have been with a parent is all included here. Tread lightly when you try to watch Bojack, and make sure you're at a decent place in life first. Once I saw this for the first time, I was like, yeah, this one's it. Like, I knew it was the best monologue I've ever heard. Recency bias? Perhaps. Don't care though. It's my number 1 pick. I've rewatched this so many times, and even though it's 7 minutes, it doesn't feel like it. It's one take, which helps very much because it makes you feel like you're really with Carmy as he's sharing his story. I think a lot of actors would have tried to over-deliver this monologue, but Jeremy delivers it naturally and realistically. He hits all the emotional beats with perfect timing, and there's this raw authenticity when he speaks. We're given everything we need to know about Carmy and why he's the way he is through this monologue, and it's just the best, man. It's a fantastic piece of writing and acting that will impact you in various ways, personally and creatively. Insane hair from Jeremy, by the way. So, those are my top 10 monologues, or speeches, whatever you want to call them, to be honest. Realized most of them are from shows and only one was from a movie, but no rules when it comes to these ranking vids, am I right? I know I didn't have Lord of the Rings or Good Will Hunting or Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I think those monologues are great for sure, but this is just a personal list. All love at the end of the day. Let me know your favorite monologues in the comments. Let me know why you think my list sucks or if it's elite. And yeah, that's about it for this one. Peace.